So let us talk about one of the most common and potential dangerous complication we might face during or after oral surgery. That is hemorrhage. Right? What is hemorrhage? Hemorrhage is defined as escape of blood from ruptured blood vessels. So managing bleeding is important to ensure patient safety and a successful outcome. So why is hemorrhage such a big deal? Bleeding can be embarrassing for both the surgeon and patient, and it can be dangerous if it is not. If you don't manage it properly, it can be dangerous. So how can you avoid the bleeding complication? Before the surgery, we need to gather a thorough medical history from the patient. Ask any Ask the patient if they had any episode of prolonged bleeding, such as cuts, dental extraction, or surgery. Ask about excessive menstrual bleeding. Check if the patient is taking any medication, especially anticoagulants like the warfarin or aspirin. That thin the blood, or antihypertensive drugs can affect the bleeding. So it is important to know this because this medication can significantly impact how much patient bleeds during surgery. Some patient already know that they have a bleeding disorders like the hemophilia. Although these cases are rare, knowing this in advance can help us to take extra precautions. So you have to plan the surgery carefully. For major surgeries, with the we should plan in advance, estimate the amount of blood loss based upon the expected duration and vascularity of the area being operated. For example, surgeries that involves the high vascular areas like the gums or tongue will have higher risk of bleeding. So it is important to perform blood group and cross matching beforehand, especially if we expect that blood transfusion might be needed during or after the surgery. To prevent hemorrhage, we must have a good understanding of anatomy of the surgical area. Knowing where the major blood vessels are will help us to avoid accidentally cutting them. So the three steps to handle hemorrhage. The three steps to handle hemorrhage, they are: number one is prevention, second is control, and third is the management. So these are not one time action, they require the constant attention of the surgeon throughout the entire surgical procedure. So consider the amount of blood loss based upon the vascularity of the area and the duration of surgery. Now let us discuss the types of hemorrhage. Types of hemorrhage. Remember, hemorrhage can be primary. It occurs during surgery due to vessel injury. Second is reactionary hemorrhage. It occurs within 24 hours. And it occurs due to inadequate hemostasis. The third is the secondary hemorrhage. It occurs 7 to 10 days post surgery. And occurs due to infection or slowing of vessels. So, what is the management of hemorrhage? Primary hemorrhage control is direct pressure with the gauze, use of hemostatic agents. We can use is bone wax, oxidized cellulose can be used, or local anesthetics with vasoconstrictor, adrenaline can be used, or we can do is suturing or ligation of vessels. Now, use of electrocautery can be done, electrocoagulation. So, monitor the patient closely for sign of bleeding, provide post-operative instruction on what if bleeding occurs, include applying pressure and seeking immediate medical help. So, what is hemorrhage? Hemorrhage is the escape of blood from the ruptured blood vessels. What are the type of hemorrhage? They can be primary hemorrhage, reactionary hemorrhage, and secondary hemorrhage. How can hemorrhage be prevented in oral surgery? Good surgical technique through post-operative assessment and appropriate management of patient medical condition. What are ways to control primary hemorrhage? We can use is the direct pressure method. We can use hemostatic agent. We can use ligation or suturing of the blood vessel that can be done. So there are several types of bleeding, each has its own characteristics. Let us discuss them. The capillary hemorrhage, it is the least severe type of bleeding. Imagine it as tiny droplets that are oozing out from sponge. So that is what capillary bleeding looks like. The blood comes out from small vessels and it is bright red. It's slow and oozing. Other is arterial hemorrhage. It is most serious. Arterial bleeding is like a burst pipe. So it is fast, forceful, with blood spurting out in pulses. The blood is bright red because it is rich in oxygen and it is an emergency situation as it can lead to lot of blood loss very quickly. The second is venous hemorrhage. Venous bleeding is, remember, it is steady and flow like stream. The blood here is dark red because it is coming back to the heart low in oxygen and it does not pulsate like arterial bleeding, but it still need to be controlled properly. Other is concealed hemorrhage. Concealed hemorrhage is also known as internal bleeding. So this type it happens inside the body, like when there is fracture and bloods leak into the surrounding tissue. You might not see it immediately, but it can be dangerous because a lot of blood can be lost without being obvious. Primary hemorrhage, it is bleeding that occurs right away either during the surgery or due to an injury. For example, when you stitch a wound, some bleeding is normal and is considered primary hemorrhage. Intermediate or reactionary hemorrhage that occurs within 24 hours after the surgery. It can be due to sudden rise in blood pressure or if a stitch or ligature slips. It is like when a knot comes undone and blood starts to flow again. It's like that. Other is secondary hemorrhage. It occurs 24 hours after the first 24 hours due to infection that breaks down the blood clot that formed earlier. Think of it like a scab coming off too early because of irritation or infection. Petechial hemorrhage. These are tiny pinpoint spots of bleeding under the skin or mucosa. Imagine tiny red dots not bigger than pinhead. So these are termed as petechial. These are small but can indicate underlying problem with the blood clotting. Ecchymosis. What is ecchymosis? It is like a bruise but larger. It happens when blood leak into the skin, turning it various shades of red, blue, purple. We commonly call it as a black and blue mark. Other is hematoma. Hematoma is a collection of blood outside the blood vessels, like lump or swelling under the skin. It is like you hit your head and get a goose egg. That swelling is like a hematoma. So there are two main types of hemorrhage that can cause excessive bleeding. One is a mechanical hemorrhage and other is biochemical hemorrhage. Mechanical hemorrhage, think of this as bleeding that is caused by direct injury to the blood vessels. So when the blood vessels is cut or damaged during surgery, it bleeds. Normally our blood stops the bleeding by forming a clot, but sometimes the clot does not form properly or it breaks down because of infection. The bleeding can come from arteries, veins or capillaries. The second type is biochemical hemorrhage. This type of bleeding is due to a problem within the body natural clotting process. So example is if the patient lack one or more factors needed for normal blood clotting, they may bleed excessively. So these patients, they have conditions like hemophilia, liver diseases. So these can prevent the formation of proper clot. Sometimes blood vessels can be located in an unexpected places, away from the usual landmarks we use during surgery. So these vessels might get accidentally cut during surgery, leading to heavy bleeding. So it is like finding an unexpected roadblock on familiar path. So you need to be extra cautious for that. So when dealing with the diseased or inflamed tissue, there might be an increase in number of blood vessels, that is vascularity. So these vessels may bleed when cut. So tissue with lot of granulation tissue will continue bleeding until they are completely removed, sometimes require removal pieces by pieces to minimize the blood loss. Hypertension. If the patient BP is too high during surgery, it can make bleeding much more worse. High blood pressure can cause blood vessel to rupture or bleed more easily. It is especially common when surgery is done under LA without proper pre-medication to calm the patient. So always check the patient blood pressure before the surgery. Patient with clotting disorders such as hemophilia or those with liver dysfunction may have deficient clotting mechanism so that their blood does not clot normally, leading to excessive bleeding even from the small cuts. So if the surgery is not careful, if the surgeon is not careful, there is lack of respect for the blood vessel during dissection, meaning they are unnecessary tear or cut or small bleeding points are ignored. It can lead to excessive bleeding. Think of like driving recklessly on a bumpy road, so you are bound to hit some obstacles. Condition affecting the blood vessels themselves like vitamin C deficiency or chronic diseases make them more likely to bleed. Platelets which form clot are important. If there are not enough platelets or they don't function properly, bleeding can occur. To stop bleeding, our body relies on process that is known as coagulation. So when blood vessels they are damaged, platelets they form a plug, and several factors like factor 1, 2, 3 and so on work in cascade to form a stable clot. If any of these factors are missing, the clotting process gets disrupted and bleeding becomes difficult to control. So during the operation, we must always remain attentive and perform a clear, careful dissection. That means avoiding unnecessary tears in tissue or fragmentation of the bone. Remember, a single well-planned incision with sharp instrument is always better than jagged or lacerated cut, which can lead to more bleeding. Ensure that granulation tissue they are removed completely, and if you notice any bleeding, clamp the bleeders and tie them off immediately. Handle the tissue with care to avoid any unnecessary trauma that could lead to bleeding. So when making incision, go through the entire depth of mucosa and periosteum. It is known as bone deep incision. So this way we avoid creating superficial laceration that could tear later. When raising a flap, do it clearly from bone to avoid any tears or lacerations. Properly expose the surgical site. It is essential for ensuring clean and precise surgery. So that reduces the risk of accidental injury to the surrounding tissue, decrease the operative time, minimize bleeding during surgery, and also reduce the post-operative swelling. So at the end of surgery, always make sure that the wound is closed properly after achieving hemostasis. Inadequate closure could mean you will have to bring the patient back into the operating room just few hours later to reopen the wound to control the bleeding. So for patient known to have bleeding risk, thorough pre-operative evaluation is the key. Start by taking medical history. Ask the patient if they have condition that could lead to bleeding. Patients who are on anticoagulant therapy, like for conditions like coronary thrombosis, pulmonary embolism, thrombophlebitis, or stroke, these medications such as warfarin or aspirin thin the blood and increases the blood loss. Patient with liver diseases or liver function impairment. Liver is vital for producing many of the clotting factors needed for blood to clot normally. So patient with blood disorders like anemia, hemophilia, leukemia, thrombocytopenia, or agranulocytosis all can impair the body ability to form clot. So during the operation, we must always remain attentive and perform a clean, careful dissection, avoiding unnecessary tears in tissue or fragmentation of bone. So remember, a single when planned incision with sharp instrument is always better than a jagged or lacerated cut that can lead to more bleeding. At the end of surgery, always make sure that wound is closed properly after achieving hemostasis. Inadequate closure could mean you have to bring back into the operative just a few hours to reopen the wound to control bleeding. For any patient with history of bleeding, certain lab tests should be considered to evaluate bleeding risk properly. First is the lab test is hemoglobin level to check anemia, bleeding time to see how quickly small blood vessel stops bleeding, clotting time to check how long time does it take for blood to clot, platelet count, since platelets are essential for blood clotting, prothrombin time, to measure how well the blood is clotting, capillary fragility test to evaluate the strength of capillary walls, blood grouping, typing and cross matching to prepare any potential need for blood transfusion, serum bilirubin level, liver function test to assess the liver function, since liver plays a major role in producing clotting factor. Other is the acquired coagulation disorders. They happen when something interferes with the normal production of clotting factor or body's ability to form clot. Some common causes can be liver diseases. The liver produces most of the clotting factor, so liver diseases can impair their synthesis, leading to a higher risk of bleeding. Kidney problems can also affect the balance of clotting and bleeding. Kidney problems can affect the balance of clotting and bleeding. Drugs, warfarin, aspirin, oral contraceptive, chloramphenicol, immunosuppressive agents can interfere with the coagulation mechanism. Transfusion can cause coagulation problems because the anticoagulants need to be added to store the blood might accumulate in the body. Genetic inherited abnormalities like hemophilia A, it is a sex-linked recessive disorder that is caused by deficiency of factor 8, also known as antihemophilic globin. So only males exhibit the disease while females are carrier. None of the sons will have hemophilia, but half of the daughters could be carrier. The clinical features: disease presents as bleeding after minor trauma, often in joints, skins, GIT tract or urinary tract, The patient have a prolonged coagulation time. But normal bleeding time. The hemophilia can be classified as classic, moderate, mild, or subhemophilia based upon level of the antihemoglobin in the blood. Treatment includes administration of whole blood, fresh plasma, cryoprecipitate, human factor 8. So these are the treatment. Treatment consists of fresh whole blood, fresh plasma, cryoprecipitate, human factor 8, or epsilon amino caproic acid that could be given. For extraction in hemophilic patient, utmost care is required. Used local anesthesia over general anesthesia to avoid trauma. Infiltration anesthesia over nerve blocks to minimize the bleeding risk. Use an acrylic plate to cover the wound and support the clot formation. Avoid aspirin and ensure factor 8 supplementation post-operatively for 7 to 10 days. Other is hemophilia B. It is also known as pseudohemophilia. It is due to the deficiency of which factor? Factor 9. It has similar clinical feature and genetic inheritance. The bleeding may be noticed at birth, often from the umbilical cord and later in the life in areas like GIT tract, bones, joints, or subcutaneous tissue. Management involves infusing whole blood, plasma, or concentrates containing factor 7, 9, or 11. Other is factor 11 and 13 deficiency. Bleeding in these deficiencies is usually less severe and less frequent compared to factor 8 or 9. So that can be managed with blood or plasma transfusion. Now let us discuss the control of hemorrhage in surgical setting. The first is application of pressure. You can apply pressure to control most hemorrhage. For example, a gauze pack or cotton damped with saline can be molded over extraction site. Avoid pressure to certain points can also help to stop bleeding temporarily from the major vessels. Some pressure points are external carotid artery between angle of mandible and sternocleidomastoid muscle, facial artery at antero-inferior angle of mesenteric muscle, superficial temporal artery in the front of tragus of ear, or lingual vessels, 2 finger under the tongue and thumb over the chin in submental area. So bleeding points in soft tissue can be clamped with mosquito forceps artery and tied using suturing such as plain, chromic catgut, silk, or vicryl. So for vessels that cannot be clamped, a stick tie technique may be used. So coagulation can be achieved using electrocoagulation. Chemical agents like ferric sulfate, tannic sulfate, care must be taken with chemical cauterization to avoid damaging the normal mucosa. Bleeding from bone can be controlled by crushing the bone at bleeding point using a ball burnisher. If that fails, bone wax. Bone wax is, remember, a mixture of bee wax, and Carnauba wax that can be applied to the bleeding area. For bleeding from the extraction socket, you can use oxidized cellulose or gel foam soaked in thrombin to create artificial clot. Adrenaline packed soaked in dilute concentration, they are used temporarily to control the bleeding. So when conventional method fails, options like iodoform gauze soaked in zinc oxide, eugenol paste, or packing the socket with softened impression compound can be used to provide pressure. The secondary hemorrhage, it occurs 24 hours post-operatively due to wound infection or pressure of the foreign bodies like broken tooth pieces or metal fillings. Management involves reopening the blood, removing foreign bodies, and resulting with pressure packing. Blood transfusion are needed for significant blood loss during surgery, bleeding disorders, and supportive therapy in conditions like sepsis or carbon monoxide poisoning. Complication could be hepatitis, HIV transmission, incompatibility, allergic reaction, hypothermia, air embolism. So these all are a complication. Auto transfusion, this method uses the patient's own blood collected before surgery to minimize the risk associated with traditional transfusion. It is particularly advantageous as it eliminates the risk of infection and incompatibility issues. So, control of bleeding, whether through careful surgical technique or use of appropriate hemostatic method, it is important to the patient safety. Always be prepared to manage both primary and secondary hemorrhage and be mindful of potential complications that are associated with the blood transfusion.